So about a month or so back, I talked about like this fun scenario of what if the Death Corps of Krieg fought in the Clone Wars, and in there I talked about how they would be one of the fiercest fighting units in the Clone Wars. But I also had the belief that they would instantly turn on the Jedi come Order 66 and serve the Empire until Palpatine had no use of them. So I thought it'd be kind of fun to revisit that idea with a different faction or a different unit that would probably not be as totally, like, throw-in with fascists so quickly. So here we are now with, what if the Farsight Enclave fought in the Clone Wars? So, here we go. So, for those who don't know what the Farsight Enclave is, the Farsight Enclave is basically the closest you'll get to real, like, actual good guys in Warhammer 40k. These, like I said, these guys are the closest you will. These are the nicest people, and that's saying something in the Warhammer 40k universe. They fight for the greater good in its purest form. They don't fight for the ethereals. They fight because they know what they're doing is right. Also, they fight in giant robot armors. Like it's imagine like Super Sentai and Gundam put together. That's what the Farsight Enclave essentially is. So what would it be like if you had the Farsight Enclave in the Star Wars universe and fighting in the Clone Wars? Well, obviously they would be fighting for the Republic, even though I think they would. Here's the thing: the Farsight Enclave would be fascinating to have, even though I do think they'd fight for the Galactic Republic. I think they would also try to minimize if this was like they were fighting on a separatist world, fighting droids. I think they would also try to minimize as much damage to, you know, civilians on a separatist world. Like, I think it would be kind of a fun thing where they would be like, you know, civilians are civilians and casualties are casualties regardless. That's how they always operate, is that it's for the greater good and every life is sacred to them, to the Farsight Enclave. So they would essentially be doing damage control on as many worlds as they can. Now, granted, the Farsight Enclave isn't very big, but it does have a good number of great fighters, and their technology is pretty badass, and I do think they could probably hold their own in a good amount of battle. A lot of battles, excuse me. So, I do think the Farsight Enclave would also be... imagine just your basic platoon of, like, battle droids fighting, you know, blasting their way through clone troopers, and then here comes, flying in out of fuck nowhere, this big red and white robot with a giant katana about being like, I'm about to end your fucking lives, and just slashing their way through it and blasting the battle tanks. The clone troopers, I think, would be the Enclave and the troopers would get along really well. I also think that the Enclave would be the same thing of like what Plo Koon said to some clone troopers he saved, is like, we're expendable, and he goes, not to me. So the Farsight Enclave would be battling and then, you know, providing covering fire at their own expense to some clone troopers, and the clone troopers would be like, you didn't have to do that, man. Like, we're expendable. We're endless. And the Enclave would be like, it's all for the greater good. All of you are sacred. And what would the Enclave think of the Jedi? I do think they would get, honestly, I do think they would get some vibe of, like, the ethereals, and that would kind of piss them off, because there's some animosity there. But I do think that while the Council would probably upset them in some extent, I do think, like, the Enclave would get along very well with a lot of Jedi, especially like Anakin and Obi-Wan and Ahsoka. I could totally see like Ahsoka hanging out with Commander Farsight and the others. They would be like, I think she would she would be the one who would be like really hanging out, and I could almost see like this scene of like her standing on Farsight's shoulders in his suit with her lightsabers out, just ready to like jump down and start fighting. So I think they would be a great asset. Like, but again, there aren't many of the Farsight Enclave, so they would have to be used for like specific missions. Like, they would be used for specific missions, even though I think the Enclave would be like, oh yeah, we could totally go. We can go here, here, here. And he was like, no, dude, you are stretched too thin. You would be your faction would be stretched far too thin to be used in that regard. So, I do think that the Enclave would be ready to jump to protect, and I think they would willingly volunteer for battling, for if there's a major battle going on, and if it's a civilian heavy planet, the Farsight Enclave would literally be like the first to go, like, we're here to give our assistance to the Republic and join up with you, hook up with you for this mission. Palpatine would not like them because he can't get any sway on them. It's not like he can, it's not like back with the Death Core of Krieg, where it's like he could use that kind of fanaticism, that if you took away the fanaticism with the Emperor and put it with, well, the Republic for the Death Core, he could just manipulate them and they'd instantly turn on them. The Farsight Enclave is just lawful good, and they can't be manipulated in this war like, Palpatine's doing on both sides of the conflict. So what would happen to the Enclave during Order 66? I do think they would be really sad. I do think that they would be incredibly sad at the thought of having to now have to kill the same troopers they fought and bled with during the entire conflict. But at the same time, I think they would be like, well, I'm sorry I have to do this, and just fire back at them. And the Enclave would do their best to protect as many Jedi as they could. Like, I could even see them, like, busting their way into, fighting their way into the Jedi Temple while Anakin and the 501st are slaughtering Jedi and trying to protect as many of them. Especially I think their first course of action would be trying to get as many younglings as grab and recover as many younglings as they could and get them out of there. While also providing covering fire for others. So I do think that, like, if Order 66 was about to happen, I imagine Palpatine would be like, great Farsight Enclave, Commander Farsight, I have a mission for you. In the far reaches, there's a planet that's under attack by Separatist forces. Go there with your entire faction. No, you don't have to come back to Coruscant. It's fine. It's gonna, it's fine. Nothing bad's gonna happen. Nothing ominous. No, ominous. No, it's fine. Go. So. But I do think once that happened, the Enclave would be targeted by Palpatine and be like, you got to take those out. They would be a target because they would be trying to help as many Jedi as they could to get them to safety, and I think they would be a target because even after the Empire grows, because they would be fighting against now the Empire, which is now a force of tyranny. So I think if they could live long enough, because there aren't many of them. If those who survive the Purge, I think what would be left of them would go and join the Rebellion, or help forge the Rebellion in some capacity. So yeah, that's just what I think, though. But what do you guys think? What do you think it would be like if the Farsight Enclave fought in the Clone Wars? Do you think they would ally with the Jedi, or do you think something else would happen? Just comment below, let me know. Other than that, hope you all enjoyed this. I'm Mr. Multiverse. I'll see you next time in Multiverse.